he strikes me, and this is what I've always liked about him, is someone who's very comfortable in his own skin, who knows who he is. He doesn't care necessarily what, people think about him now.
And we're joined now by Charlie Wolf. You saw him in the film. Reginald, of course, is still with us. So, how often have you been championing lost causes?
Well, I'll tell you, as a talk show host, I did this for about 8 years, and I know I'm probably the only one, and they must think I'm crazy, but I think there is a case to be made. I think, we were just discussing a minute ago, when Truman left office, they thought the same way of Harry S. Truman. And you talk about Truman nowadays, he's a pretty well-venerated president. I mean, even myself, he's a hero to me. You look at the history and you look at the facts, I think it's going to take 20 years. But I think there'll be a different view of George W. Bush then.
But the view of the moment is certainly that after 9/11, when he had the support of the world, when even Le Monde was saying, we are all Americans now, and he blew it.
Well, I don't know how much of the support we had. I mean, yeah, it's very easy, excuse me, to all be Americans for one day, but it only took about 3-4 days, as you'll remember, for all the angst to come out on Question Time on the Thursday after.
It's all very easy to love George Bush 20 years from now. I mean, it's the same sort of ease. He did blow it. I mean, after September 11th, there were people, the world was like, oh man, it was a very, very emotional thing, and it affected the rest of the world. And if he had just, logically and sensibly included the world in the decision, rather than using his brute force that is this axis of evil thing that he wanted to go on.
But I think what you forget is as I think I said in the film, Iraq was a problem well before 9/11. And intransigence in the United Nations and the Security Council from France and China was also a problem well before 9/11 and well before George Bush.
We thought it was a problem because we thought and were told it had weapons of mass destruction.
That's the point.
Since it didn't have them, it wasn't a problem.
I think the case goes deeper than that. Again, you go back to the Clinton years. That was the case. The people making the WMD case in 1998, 1999, John Kerry, Al Gore, Senator Clinton, President Clinton, these are the people that signed the Iraqi Freedom Act.
But it's not just the effect, likely that the Democrats could take over the White House next week in the election. The real criticism of Mr. Bush comes from within his own party, that under Mr. Bush, the Republican coalition of fiscal conservatives, social conservatives, neocon hawks, which has dominated American politics for a generation now, that coalition's in smithereens. The Republican Party will have to rebuild itself.
They will. And I think
that's a pretty damning criticism of a Republican president.
I think, though, that problem actually, the pox is more on the Republican Party, not on George W. Bush. If you look at the Congress, their ratings are far lower than George W. Bush.
Yeah, but that's because the American people just don't like the Congress. It's not that they're down on the Democrats so much as they're just down on Congress.
Well, they are, and they're actually more down on the Democrats, funny enough, because the ratings, when the midterms after they took over in the last 2 years, it slid from 24 to 12%.
Yeah, come on, the Democrats are going to get a bigger majority in the House next week, and they could get a filibustering, beating 60 seats in the Senate.
And the reason is, and I go back to the midterms, for the same reason they lost then, a lot of Republican congressmen and senators were not acting like conservatives. So yes, a pox on their house. I don't blame them.
Any redeeming feature in your mind for George W. Bush?
Funny, I was just about to ask him, did George Bush do anything bad? I mean, is there anything that George Bush did in your mind that
I'm sure he, for instance, Harriet Miers was a Supreme Court nominee. Nominee, I think, was a mistake. He did spend more than he should have. Some of it, I think,
was... He's a big government conservative. He spent more on domestic policy than any president since President Johnson's Great Society.
Oh, yeah. And that's what the whole was compassionate conservatism was all about. Some of it, I think, was legitimate. You had to bring in a whole new department in Homeland Security. We were post...
Even if you exclude Homeland and Defense...
You're right. And I've always said he's been a big spender.
And was he compassionate?
Well, actually, he was. Can I just say, I think there's one thing that needs to be brought out that people forget, away from all of this. Let's look to Africa. And what that man has done in Africa with the PEPFAR program on AIDS, his aid program in general, that alone should have got the guy, in any other circumstance, a Nobel Peace Prize. He's quadrupled aid on what Clinton did. And, you talk to Africans. I did the World Service recently.
All right, let's hear from Reg.
When you get caught lying, lying grossly about weapons of mass destruction, say, for instance, then that negates your possibility of getting the Nobel Prize.
But he didn't lie. He didn't. That's
You
a
know what?
fallacy. That is a fallacy.
Okay.
Everybody believed the WMD, and we all know. Listen, we know what the
Okay.
guy did in '91. We know what his history
Okay,
is.
all right. Well, shall we say that somebody in his government lied, maybe to him?
Somebody
and
certainly wasn't telling the truth.
Somebody was dishonest, okay? Now, and to answer your question, the best thing that George Bush did was ensure that voter turnout would be higher than ever this time around.
Because you probably wouldn't be having the chance of a President Obama if it wasn't for George Bush.
That's right. As Chris Rock said, I mean, George Bush has made it really hard for a white man to get nominated as president.
Actually,
Who's Chris Rock?
He's this white dude. Don't worry about it.
You're the biggest name for me.
You're the only host I love, too.
One of the things that's made it possible for Barack Obama to be possibly president, and we still don't know yet, is the fact that Iraq is not on the agenda. And it has gone off the news agenda because things have turned in Iraq. Listen, I will agree.
No, people losing their houses.
We've got time to agree because we've run out of time. But I want two quick answers to two quick questions. Who is your favorite post-war president, and who's going to win next week?
Post-war favorite would probably be Reagan. Win next week, we don't know.
Who do you think?
I think McCain still has a very good chance.
He's going to have to pull a Truman to do
yeah,
that.
but he has
And
a
the
good
answer,
chance.
your favorite post-war president?
Kennedy.
And the man going to win next week?
Obama.
There we go. You don't get questions as answered.
Guess where you heard it
when you
first.
got politicians. That's great. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Good to have you on the show.